Welcome back to Tease, a podcast about script building. I'm your host, Kinky Joe. This is going to be an addendum to the previous video, Where to Begin. In this video, we're going to focus on going back through the script that we had started on the previous video. And we're going to look at each of the roles on here and how they impact this specific script and try to iteratively review this bad boy and get it down to a working script, something good, something functional, something we're going to love. Now, this video is going to be more freeform than my previous videos. I don't get paid to make scripts, so I tend to do them, let's just say I do them on business calls. I'm going to be reviewing this script in the moment, making changes just as I would in my free time. So let's start with our Shugenja. So Shugenja is a starts knowing role. So its ability happens once. The thing that it is most powerful against is the Vigor Mortis. Vigor Mortis cannot impact the Shugenja. There may be other roles in the future, other things that we're not considering, but Vigor Mortis cannot kill or poison the Shugenja or any other start knowing roles before they've gotten their ability to fire off of. On the other side, Shugenja is very powerful with roles like Cannibal, Pixie, Philosopher, things that can recur the role. So something to keep in mind. Snake Charmer. Snake Charmer is our role that finds the demon on this script. Snake Charmer is a high risk, high reward character. A reason you might put it on your script could be for shenanigans, right? Some people just like being the Snake Charmer. One thing of note that there is a Cannibal on here, and the Cannibal Snake Charmer may also trigger. So that has some recurrence there. But the Cannibal, when it eats the Snake Charmer and it actually hits a demon, the demon's going to learn the Cannibal. So hopefully the Cannibal is not out of themselves. One thing the Snake Charmer has an interesting interaction, we'll say, is roles like the Spy or the Widow. The Spy or the Widow know that the Snake Charmer is in play. But notably, those are minions. Minions that can lie to the demon and say it's not in play. So it's something to worry about. They could, it's not something that's present on this script, but something that you should pay attention to. The Cult Leader. The Cult Leader has an interesting interaction on the script because of the Lycanthrope, right? So our Lycanthrope adds an extra evil. We also have a Recluse on here that registers as potentially evil. So the Cult Leader has a couple of extra instances here where it could be bad for them. So I shouldn't say bad for them, bad for town. Because if the Cult Leader wants to be evil, being evil is kind of fun. Now, a lot of people argue the Cult Leader is not really a Townsfolk. I'm not going to talk about that here, but it is in the Townsfolk section. Moving down from there, we have our Innkeeper. So the Innkeeper is a source of droisening. The Innkeeper has fun synergy for Gambler, for things like Acrobat, right? Doesn't have as much synergy, even though Gossip adds kills to the game. The Gossip's kills, more or less, the Storyteller is likely to not go after a player that's protected by the Innkeeper. We have our Lycanthrope that could be negatively impacted by the Innkeeper. Used to have to put Lycanthrope and Innkeeper together on most scripts to keep things balanced, just so that was another reason the Lycanthrope didn't get a kill to go through. But on here with the Innkeeper, I'm not sure that it's doing much. The Innkeeper might actually be hurting town more than helping town, but it does have some interesting impacts with it, and it's another reason why the Gambler or the Acrobat didn't trigger. Speaking of Gambler, Gambler is our first role that it adds extra depth to a script. So the Gambler is interesting because it is a confirmable role. I like to refer back to TB a lot. TB has a Virgin. The Virgin on TB is hard confirmed if it triggers. I don't have an issue with that being a thing. So if you make a script and your only thing that can die via extra kill, so Gambler plus other kill, is the Gambler, it's fine. It really is. It's okay. And it's more punishing because the Gambler's dead afterward, whereas the Virgin's still alive. The Acrobat and the Gambler, they both die at night after a choice. And that choice is information to them, right? So the Gambler chooses a player, and they're hoping they get it right. The Acrobat's choosing a player, and I'm not sure if they want to die, but they're getting information based on if the player's poisoned or not. If a Gossip is killing either of those roles, it kind of feels bad for town. So if we look on this script, we have ourselves a Godfather and an Oho. Godfather's perfectly fine. Godfather's a great way to counter roles like the Acrobat, roles like the Gambler. Not so good when it comes to the Oho. So the Oho can get extra kills. The issue is the extra kills are from the Storyteller. And the Storyteller while it works pretty well synergistically with the gossip, because the gossip's not supposed to know, right? If the Oho is choosing and they're bluffing that's fine. But you're actively, as a storyteller, having to choose the acrobat plus another player, or choose the gambler plus another player to sell that the player died via their choice. That's a little tricky. So with my review of that, I'd probably swap our Oho to a Shabaloth. And then we'll come back to that in a minute, but that's something of interest. Either Shabaloth or something similar, maybe even a Yaga. If you run the Yaga, there's some people that run custom Yaga where they get to select kills at night. I don't want to get into the details of it fully, but that's another way you can do it. But yeah, that's a big headache that we're going to have to run into. Also, the Oho and the Innkeeper don't work so well, right? When you're storyteller choosing kills, and especially for the Oho, you're not supposed to sync into the Innkeeper, right? All right, the Lycanthrope. So the Lycanthrope is a good townsfolk role that kills good townsfolk and good outsiders. This is hampered on this script a couple of different ways. One, they've updated the Lycanthrope, and built into the Lycanthrope, there is now an extra evil, right? So that extra evil has the ability to stop a Lycanthrope kill. We also have ourselves an Innkeeper, so that's 2 other players that can no longer be killed by the Lycanthrope that night. The Recluse cannot be killed by the Lycanthrope that night. Those are all things to pay attention to on that, and that's a lot of different impacts. So you have to wonder if the Lycanthrope's going to hit what they need to. Honestly, the power of the Lycanthrope has been neutered to the point where this is probably the intended effect, is where it has limited impact on kills. And it doesn't mean no impact. If they choose well, or they could get unlucky, obviously, but if they choose well and they hit the right targets, they're going to get some positive town mileage, right? Killing spent rolls, killing potentially outsiders that can't help town. Things like that are useful, but the Lycanthrope's destined to hit a roll that cannot die and have multiple reasons for it. Now, we didn't even talk about the evil rolls. We've got 3 of the demons that poison, right? So the Vigor Mortis, good impact to that, right? If you kill a player next to the Lycanthrope, things aren't working. They might just think they're Vigor killed. I love that interaction, right? Vigor killed player next to him. No Dashi is just active, right? That's strong already. And the Pucka's great with Lycanthrope. If the Lycanthrope's actively getting kills, well, the Pucka's actively poisoning players that are not getting killed. Or maybe they're dying. Either way, it's funny because the Pucka might actually pick a player who gets executed, and the Lycanthrope still produces a kill that night. So we like that. We like our demon suite here, except for the Oho with the Lycanthrope. Okay? Now, the main reason the Oho was on here was due to the gossip. Right? And we have to remember, we made this script as a potential acrobat featured script. So I think we're going to have to take an L on at least one of these things. And either we need to drop a couple of roles like the Innkeeper Gambler, or we need to bounce the Oho out of here and bring ourselves a Shabaloth or something. There's an option 3 when it comes to this. But we'll get to that, because we're talking about the gossip. Let's just get to it. So the gossip is innately strong on literally every script. It is a role that produces kills and gets information. The negative on BMR is there's so many weird ways that kills can happen and kills can be prevented. You're never ever going to hit the exact same level as BMR. BMR is a developed script that all of the characters were built for that, so the interactions all work perfectly. Your script is a custom script. You don't get the say-so to redesign all the characters unless you want to go make a homebrew, and we're not doing that today. So, how do you balance it? Well, the gossip, if you can get the gossip to be bluffable by evil, you've fixed it about 90% of the way, right? So if you have an ability for double kills by the demon, so we have Shab, Oho, Yaga, those all work. That makes the gossip questionable every time. There's also a few minions that work great with it. Godfather's on here. It's not perfect. Godfather needs a kill. And this is a 3-way synergy, but Drunk plus Godfather plus Gossip is amazing. That way you never know for sure if the Gossip got a extra kill due to their Gossip or if a drunk player was executed on the previous day. Those 3 in conjunction, oof, it's great. Okay, and that's without getting into the extra evil stuff. So Bounty Hunter or Mez. If you just have a Bounty Hunter on script, the Bounty Hunter itself brings questionable thoughts to this Gossip because it's such a spicy role to turn evil. We just love that, having that evil gossip who's not outing that they're the gossip, but gossips every day that they're the gossip. It's like, no, I'm not the gossip. I'm just messing around, guys. The next thing that we have is the Mez, right? And the Mez would go search for the gossip. And the gossip might retroactively lie about all their previous day gossips when it happens. A lot of players I play with, they don't seem to listen in deeply on the gossip. So if you do get an evil gossip in the game, you can get away with basically telling anybody anything. They're like, oh, yeah, no, I believe you. That's just what it is. Unless you got Becca in your game. Then things get a little spicy because she tracks literally everything. Then we have the Assassin. I know I got carried away talking about the Mez and the Bounty Hunter, but I meant to bring in the other two minions that are really strong. The Assassin. So the Assassin has the ability to basically gossip once, like bluff it for sure, or to fake that the gossip went up. So that's super reliable. It is limited by the fact that it can only happen once though. Whereas the Boffin, instead of doing the Mez, the Bounty Hunter, right, you can just throw a Boffin on script, and now all of a sudden, doesn't matter that your gossip's working. To be fair, this is kind of a side note, Boffin kind of fixes most scripts, if I'm being honest. It doesn't make it perfect, and this is kind of a catch-all generalized statement that you should never quote me on, but the Boffin fixes everything. Okay, don't quote me on that, because it's not true. Let's go down to Juggler. So Juggler is a public role, and we mentioned previously that we don't want 3 public roles on here, so that's a problem, right? I think what we're going to end up doing is dropping the Juggler and the Cult Leader, because we said we wanted the Acrobat. And we're going to swap to some other roles that will fill that niche. But the Juggler on the first day has to pick 5 players. With a script like this, one thing that players tend to do is to wait for the first nomination when juggles happen to see if an organ grinder is in play. This is a lot stronger when the organ grinder was not able to be turned off, because now you don't even know. And, you know, it's kind of storyteller dependent if they're going to let that happen, but it's in the rules that you can allow it to happen. So beyond that, the Juggler has obviously good synergy with the Vigor Mortis because they don't get their information till night 2. There's a sizable amount of droiding on here as well. So while I like the Juggler, I think it works pretty well. It does have interesting synergy with things like the Drunk, right? It will not be featured on this script, I don't believe, due to the fact that we have ourselves too many public claiming roles. All right, the Soldier. You'll notice a couple of these roles. Soldier works on most scripts. You can just throw it on there. It's kind of a catch-all. It's a Demon's Bane. The reason that you would want a Soldier on a given script, though, is if you have another way for kills not to happen. So on this script, we've got a few ways. We've got the Pucka, right? If you execute the target, Soldier's a great reason why that might not have happened. The Innkeeper, that's another way that might happen. So those combine together, so it's not for sure that it was the Soldier that did it. Now, Soldier does not have great synergy with Lycanthrope, but they know if they die, it could have been due to the Lycanthrope, right? It could have been due to, like, Poison or Godfather as well, but that's resources that the evil team has to spend on them. And if the Lycanthrope tells you that they killed you, well, you can probably believe them, right? Because the demon can't outwardly kill you directly. All right, the Alchemist. Alchemist has some very fun roles on here with the Psychopath and the Godfather. Those are absolutely top tier, fun Alchemist roles to play. Poisoner is fun to play, but horrible for the evil team if they ever hit the demon. This script does not have that much extra killing power. It's got a little bit with Lycanthrope, so it's probably still okay to have on here with that. And the Organ Grinder is kind of meh. Doesn't really do much for town as a role, but they can just turn themselves off most of the time. Now, there is a change coming for the Alchemist that will probably impact the quality of all 4 of the minions that are on this script, but mainly for the Poisoner, in my opinion, because now the storyteller might have the ability to shut off them choosing the demon, which I'm not going to comment on that here. It's a thing. So the Poisoner with the Alchemist, that is the number one issue that you run into, and you're trying to avoid that because it's an exorcist that never has to choose a different target. It's got feedback that's pretty actionable, so maybe a little too strong on that one, but the synergy of it is fine. And with the other roles on script, there's ways for it to not function correctly. The Lycanthrope might go for it and try to kill it. Those are all interesting things that can happen with it. It's probably okay, and this script has the ability. The main reason we have the Alchemist on here And remember, it's not always just about one side, or you're trying to balance a bunch of different things. There are 2 louder minions on here, and the alchemist is helping us balance that. Right? That's something that's useful and critical for us to keep this script going. All right, the cannibal. So the cannibal is something spicy that you always have to do a look through your entire script. Honestly, I put cannibal on most of my scripts. It's just fun. It's good. Should you do it? No, don't do it. It makes scripts hard to balance sometimes because of recurrence of things. It's very, very easy to hard confirm. Also, one thing of note with the cannibal is that if you don't have a spy or a widow on script, unlike the Undertaker, it is still bluffable. It is still bluffable because the Undertaker learns a specific role. The cannibal gets woken up or doesn't get woken up, and they can fake a lot more of that than not, right? And when they do get woken up, potentially they didn't learn the same thing you did, right? Or maybe they ate a juggler and they have no idea what the hell that is going on because they're not being told anything, and they never get to do anything unless the juggler outs to them. So it's fun. It also allows you to recur some abilities that are very powerful. So let's say you really, really wanted the cult leader to happen. Cult leader gets executed. Cannibal eats the cult leader. Cult leader, cannibal, happens to be neighboring an evil player of some kind. You could turn them evil. Then they lose their ability on the next night. You have an evil cannibal now. So if you like that, if that's something you'd like to be produced in a game that your script is featured on, that's what's going to happen, okay? If you think it might happen and your script gets popular enough for people to play it, it's going to happen. Currently, even though we've mentioned the Shab, currently the cannibal eating a cult leader would never produce 2 evil players, because if the cult leader is evil when the cannibal eats it, the cannibal's poisoned. Moving down to Ravenkeeper. Ravenkeeper's classic Bane. It might be a little too strong with the lycanthrope. This is always something that you need to identify, is things that want to die at night with the lycanthrope. There's ways around this. You can make the Ravenkeeper the lycanthrope evil, which I love that that's a thing, right? It prevents it from being an easy peasy kill and puts sus on the Ravenkeeper. And unfortunately, Ravenkeeper probably has too much sus already, so this sucks for them. Or maybe you just let it happen. There's nothing wrong with that. It's bluffable by evil, and the Ravenkeeper has to out and be believed by the lycanthrope and be attacked by the lycanthrope for that to matter. The Ravenkeeper otherwise has synergy usually with the evil team that can kill themselves, so something like the Vigor Mortis. The Drunk. So there's only a few roles I don't like using with the Drunk, but the Drunk on this script is fine. There's nothing wrong with it. It works with every Townsfolk role here. The Tinker's on here really so the Gossip can be faked. So we do have a Psychopath. You could fake that. You could also kill the Tinker at the beginning of the day, give the Godfather a kill. Then we have ourselves the Recluse. Recluse is great. Remember, Drunk Recluse, can't go wrong usually. The Zealot. The Zealot's not doing very much here. It's just voting. Yeah, so as we talked about in our last video, our main weaknesses for the script that we've created here is too many public claiming roles, evil having no escape, and the Gossip being too strong. I think we've come to the conclusion that Gossip's probably okay at the moment, but let's fix our problem with the demon escape route. So let's remove our Zealot, right? Our Zealot's not doing much. We got ourselves a Barber, right, as an option. A Barber allows you to get away by swapping yourself and a Minion. The Hatter lets you change demon types. Something of note when you do your write-up, we mentioned this, you should consider if you're going to do the Chaos Hatter, which means that demons can become minions and so on and so forth. If you're going to do that, make sure that that's in your write-up so that it's clear. I think for our purposes, let's throw ourselves a little Barber on here and leave it at that for now. We'll come back to it, and always hit that sort button after you do it. Godfather. Godfather has some fun synergies here. First off, the Barber either wants to die immediately or doesn't want to die at all. Godfather loves that. So if the Godfather gets its way, the Barber will stay alive long enough for the Godfather to get that perfect kill. The Recluse. The Recluse is an outsider. It's great. Tinker. Tinker can be killed at the beginning of the day by the storyteller and trigger for the Godfather. We love that. It's something you can do if maybe the Pucka's target got executed, or if there's some other shenanigans that are happening here that are preventing deaths from happening, or if you just want to give that extra kill to the Godfather because that's the point of the Tinker. That works out fine. And then the Drunk. The Drunk is a secret weapon of the Godfather, okay? And it helps us with this whole triple synergy we talked about earlier with the Gossip. So the Godfather being able to get that kill when the Drunk dies is great, but also anytime an extra death happens, it's always questionable whether a Drunk died or not. So you always have to think back, hey, was this the Drunk? Did my gossip work? Is whatever demon doing a double kill here? Not happy, right? So I think what we should do is... So I think we're good on the Godfather. Poisoner has some powerful targets it can hit here. We'll see what happens after we modify the script a little. But right now, Poisoner might actually be a little too strong for the information that's on this script. Poisoner, you really want out there with roles that are going to solve the game directly. I think of like S&V informational roles, right? If you get into a mechanical script, the Poisoner's still pretty good, but it's got less utility. There's better mechanical minions that can have more interaction and fun in the game than potentially just a Poisoner. But again, I'll say this, and you can quote me on this. Most TB minions work on most scripts. They're just that good, right? They're good fill in the blanks. They're kind of catch-all for everything. All right, next we have ourselves the Psychopath. Psychopath is an interesting role because it's public. It's a public claimed role, and when it swings its little axe and kills something, people know if it worked or not. A lot of people like to meme and do the thing. You do have Tinker on here for the silly times that you'd like to pull that off, and that's fine and that's fun. Why not, right? That's silly. There is an Alchemist on here, so the Psychopath could pretend to be a good boy and help town. And even if they die, that doesn't necessarily mean, oh yeah, they were good, they got killed by the demon. No, because there's a Vigor Mortis on this script. So the synergy with the Psychopath on the script is pretty high and still interesting. All right, the Organ Grinder. The Organ Grinder's ability does require players to close their eyes when the voting is going on. That has negative synergy with Flower Girl, and it has positive synergy with a role that we took off this script. Looking at it, we may revert because the power levels may be off here, but you know, we do things as we go. The Organ Grinder has no poisoning directly, but it's funny because it's got an interesting interaction with the Acrobat. The Organ Grinder's on here as more of a utility role, utility minion, because its power to prevent the good team from seeing votes is strong enough in itself. And it seems to work here, and which is, as I look at these, that's why I'm considering maybe the Barber should go back to the Zealot. Alright, so let's look at all four of our minions together as a whole. So if any two of these are in the game, does that make the game simpler to solve? That's something I like to think about. Both with minions are the main ones, and then you can consider everything else. Because remember, you only ever have one demon in the game. So if you have two minions of any given type, let's see what happens. If we don't have a Godfather in the game, we have Outsider Manipulation only via the Vigor Mortis, and remember, the Drunk is like a soft Outsider Manipulation. So it is very possible with a Godfather not in the game to still have two Outsider bluffs for the evil team if they want them. If it is in play, right, then they have the ability to create extra kills, which means they can bluff several of the good townsfolk roles on here. All right, why do we care about mixing and matching all of these minions? Because if we have two of our loud minions in game, then you know that there's no Poisoner in game. You know that there's no Godfather in game. The demons, so the demon synergies here, we have a Pucka. The Pucka, we've already talked about some fun synergy with like Lycanthrope, but the Pucka also has interesting synergy with our new Acrobat. It also could be that town executes the Pucka choice, so we need options there. That's where our Godfather comes into play, right? That's where some of our good rolls with extra kills come in. That's where the Innkeeper and the Soldier come into play to hide and mask that. Potentially the Cannibal ate one of those roles as well and is doing the same thing. All right, the Nodashi. So as our current script looks like, the cult leader sitting next to a Nodashi feels bad for the Nodashi. They're never going to get him on board. But it's also interesting because the cult leader will think that they're just next to a good player. So it's got some synergy with that. There is some roles on here that have mechanical powers that will never fire off if next to the Nodashi, but nothing super strong. The Gambler is the main one. The Oho, we've already talked about. The Oho cannot directly get double kills on some of the targets that would be required to have double kills for it to make sense, aka the Gambler, the Acrobat, right? They do great with the Gossip, but it's a feels bad for the ST to make that choice. So I think that the Oho, while it has fun synergy with the Gossip, we made this an Acrobat script. I think the Oho's got to go. Finally, the Vigor Mortis. The Vigor Mortis is fine on this script. There's a lot of minions. Minions is the first thing I look at with Vigor Mortis, and then the outsiders. But the minions on here are great, right? We have Godfather, Poisoner, Psychopath, Organ Grinder. We almost got rid of, in my brain, I was thinking Recluse, but no, Vigor Mortis Recluse is amazing. So all of these minions are happy to die and provide more poison to the game. And then they're also happy to still have their ability when they're dead. But then we have 3 bluffable rolls for the Vigor Mortis in the Tinker, the Zealot, the Recluse. And if the Vigor Mortis kills the Recluse at night, the Recluse will provide poison to their neighbor. So in all, we found a couple of gaps here. I think Oho, I think Gambler is potential. I'm thinking about it. Gambler's a weird one. But Gambler, Oho, Cult Leader, Juggler. I'm not sure on Zealot. I'm really debating it. We'll see what matters. So, all right, we looked at the entire script. I think it's time we start making some adjustments. So we called out some weaknesses. We called out the Oho. We called out the Cult Leader. We called out our Juggler. And we probably also want to remove, it's debatable, the Gambler. All right, let's start with our Cult Leader. Let's bump that bad boy off here. Now, the Cult Leader was doing a couple of different things. The Cult Leader was doing alignment checking. It had a win condition, right, for either team. And it was doing alignment changing. I think we get a lot of that back if we select the Bounty Hunter, right? So we're going to end up probably keeping our outsiders like they are. I think the outsiders are fine. And because none of the demons can get away, I think what we might do with the Oho, let's leave this out as let's feel it out, right? Sometimes just pressing the button, changing the roll, and seeing how it all looks mentally is something that really helps my brain. So what I've done, I removed the Oho. So we removed demons' abilities to get multi-kills, right? None of the demons can get a multi-kill directly. The Pucka could technically get the Acrobat to kill, but that's okay. We threw an Imp on here. So the Imp is going to be another reason that evil might have gotten away. So aka a Star Pass, right? If they kill themselves, they run away. And let's synergize that with why we did that with the Bounty Hunter. So the Bounty Hunter can make any of these good rolls evil. This is going to do wonders for our Gossip. So our Gossip, our Gambler, our Acrobat, they're no longer hard confirmed. It's just not a theme. I also think that with that, the Juggler can Vamanos. And there's a few different directions we can go with this. I'm debating on some spicier options, like a Preacher. So why is a Preacher spicy? Well, we have a Psychopath, right? A Psychopath says, hey, I'm the Psychopath, and swings at somebody. And if the Preacher picks them, they no longer function, right? Their ability goes away, which also means that they die immediately if they get nominated and executed. So it is spicy. Your players have to know that when they're playing this script. If you put a Preacher on there and a Psychopath out, it probably feels bad. But it's also a great bluff, where if their Psychopath is pretending to be the Alchemist and another evil player is pretending to be the Preacher, you can just gain trust with town. You can also use the Preacher for all the other minions on here. I think it's strong. I think it's probably okay. And it's possible that it's too strong. The other options I was thinking about here were, let me just do some open thoughts with you guys on why we're taking into a lot now. So we have the ability to make whatever Townsfolk role we choose here also evil. And we're going to look at all the roles now that the Bounty Hunter's on script again for the evil side. So Amnesiac comes to mind as interesting. Again, we're kind of getting into an advanced script there, so let's hold off on that. Chambermaid I looked at, but the issue with the Chambermaid is that, again, all the demons and most of the minions wake up pretty often, so the Chambermaid's not doing anything for us. I don't want any start knowing rolls anymore. We have 2 and we have a Vigor Mortis, right? We want to keep that very limited. I was thinking Engineer as well. Engineer is interesting, but there's an optimal demon choice, right? You just pick Pucka, and that's a problem. The reason I wouldn't put Engineer on there is literally due to the Pucka. Pucka and Engineer are not friends. The General's kind of interesting. It gives you some side information, almost like meta information about the game. You just have to make sure you're working with town to figure out what's going on. That's in my top list there, that and Preacher. Mathematician might be too strong on this script. It's unclear. A Night 1 that gets you anything could be Poisoner, could be 2 of the demons have fired off. I don't believe any of the Townsfolk give Droidsing on Night 1. So It's kind of signaling certain things. But again, I guess that's if town believes them. So tricky on that one. I don't think I'd choose it. Minstrel's an option. Minstrel is interesting because if they think it's a minstrel night, they can go for the psychopath. There's a couple reasons why they might think it's a minstrel night. But it's also a reason that kills wouldn't go through. I don't think it synergizes well. The Lycanthrope's hoping for reliable kills most night. Or if they don't kill, the demon will. Minstrel is almost confirmed in that scenario, because if the Lycanthrope doesn't go off and the demon doesn't go off, it's a lot of magical stuff would happen there for both to have hit something that stops it. So it's likely it's just a minstrel night. So we don't really love that. I was also thinking of another spicier choice of the Fool. Remember, we have a psychopath on script. It's a fun way to bait the psychopath attack. We also have a bounty hunter that can make the Fool evil, so they're not hard confirmed. And it is a strong evil script. This is a way you can poison them, right? The Fool could just prove themselves by being executed. That's fine. All those things are fine. There's nothing wrong with that. I just don't know if it is filling the needs that we want. I also thought about Courtier, just because of the amount of droizing on the script already. It kind of adds some interest to it. Again, it could be evil. But I think at the end of the day on this one, we have to remember that we removed the Juggler, which is a role that was confirming things, right? Confirming players. We still have the Gambler on here, so it's not a total loss if we don't go for that. Honestly, I'm thinking either Pixie or Preacher here. I know Pixie's a starting role information, but the second night of information doesn't need to be accurate, and that's where the Vigor Mortis has play. The Vigor Mortis has fine synergy with the Pixie if they actually try to gain their ability. And it adds a reason for double claims, which is interesting. It also has interesting synergy with a Lycanthrope. A Lycanthrope can help kill one of the two of them, potentially triggering the Pixie, which may help all three. But an evil Pixie is quite funny. So yeah, let's throw Pixie on there. Let's hit that sort button and see what we landed with. So I want to go through these roles really quickly with the Bounty Hunter. So Bounty Hunter Shigenja, you're just going to get bad information, right? Or the Bounty Hunter adds that bad evil to potentially draw the Shigenja in one direction or the other. Which is something we're getting close to when it comes to misinformation. We're hitting close to the limit here. I'm feeling it in my loins. I'm feeling it internally. Bounty Hunter turning evil is not in my book today. I'm not going to discuss that. Pixie. A Pixie Bounty Hunter. Pixie turned evil Bounty Hunter is hilarious, especially if they see the Bounty Hunter. Something silly, if they can get the Bounty Hunter killed, then they can go and find their team. The Snake Charmer. We talked about not having demon escape routes before. Well, now you have it. Bounty Hunter can make the Snake Charmer evil. The Innkeeper is hilarious when they're evil turned by the Bounty Hunter because they're protecting and adding droids into town, but they're also confusing the evil team, so it can have some negative synergy. Luckily, they don't have to choose living players. You can just choose dead players if they think they're really interacting. But it's another reason why maybe the Gambler doesn't go up. Gambler that's evil can bluff that they were Godfather killed. The Acrobat has a similar ability to do that. The Lycanthrope that's evil is just crazy strong. I think it might be too strong because an evil Lycanthrope still adds another player that registers as evil. Luckily on this script, there's not a lot of things that detect alignment, right? So it's not the worst case scenario here. The Gossip, we've already mentioned that one. The Soldier that is evil turned, I guess it's funny. Doesn't do a crazy amount of stuff. The Alchemist that's evil turned is probably a big no at the moment, but maybe in the future. I don't tend to do that. It would have to be really interesting circumstances. But you can, and it's strong. It's another evil. Well, another minion, basically. The Cannibal that's turned evil is fun and strong, and it puts sus on their ability to just confirm people. They could be the confirmed evil turned cannibal. And then the Raven Keeper that's evil turned, oh, they could potentially shoot for their evil team and go talk to them. So those are all fun roles. Not all of them are perfect, but they're all interesting. And with the Pixie, we've been able to get back some of that Juggler action. So let's do a quick look at our script when it comes to misinformation and how it all weighs in. In misinformation, on this script, we're going to gauge it a couple different ways, right? I'm going to write these down. Kills, poison, and this evil registration. So we have a couple of evil registration, adding things with the recluse, the bounty hunter, and the lycanthrope itself. Those can all work against the cannibal. They work against the lycanthrope. They work against the Shugenja. They potentially work against the bounty hunter. I just noticed a funny synergy. The bounty hunter can actually see the lycanthrope turned evil player. So I actually do love that. You can help direct it to it. Is the acrobat doing enough on this script? I think so. I think they can potentially find the demon type. Right? They could find a Vig killed player. They could find a Nodashi neighbor. They could find a Pucka target. They could find the drunk. Yeah, I think that's fine. They can help the gambler know that their information is legit most of the game, as long as, you know, they're both being honest with each other. I think that's okay. I think it's doing a little bit here. I think that maybe the script is missing a little bit of strong info, but that's why we did not put any way for the demon to move unless it's inherent in their ability, aka the imp. So right now, very powerful roles that all kind of work together. A pixie, a cannibal with the bounty hunter. I think that's all fine. If we were to add one ongoing role, it would probably be Shugenja turned into an empath. I think that might help balance a little bit of this. I think we're going to do that. So we're going to dump the Shugenja. We're going to throw in... We could do a village idiot instead, but that might just be too much. So let's try an empath. And let's give it a gander. So, is anything super broken? Is it too rough for evil in certain setups? Potentially. But the kill power of evil is medium to high. The kill power for good is pretty good. Bluffability is strong. There's only a few like strong informational roles with the bounty hunter and the empath, and potentially the cannibal that recurs on that. Most of the other roles are mechanical, like heavy mechanical. And we solved our outed public claim stuff. We just have this gossip situation going on. So yeah, I think the script, because there is no demon survivability outside of the imp jumping and, you know, the niche occurrence where the snake charmer's bounty hunter turn, I think this is pretty strong for both sides. Right? There's enough Droizen on here with the potential to Nodashi, the poisoner, we have a drunk. Where the snake charmer's not 100% sure they're clearing anybody, they're also on the DL. The quietness of the evil turned player can really throw off town if they're not mentioning anything. Got the Godfather here to cover the tracks on the evil side. Got the Alchemist to help out with all the minion roles. I think we may have built an okay script here, guys. I don't think it's perfect. Because the next step is to playtest this bad boy. Don't think that your doo-doo don't stink just because we looked at it together and we went through it 1,000 times. You could put hundreds of hours into things. That doesn't mean that it's good and it's done. It's not ready until you get concurrence from others that say, yes, that was fun. I liked your script. So that's next step. Take whatever you did with your changes, take it out there, try it out. Maybe we'll get to try this on one of our Kinky Clocktower episodes. All right, peace.